Welcome back to another video. As you can see here today, we have the Fahrenheit again. Now, if you didn't see the first video I did on this car, go ahead and check that out. In that video, we went through and cleaned out the disgusting interior, replaced the headliner, and got the interior looking nice, as well as washed the outside of the car. Now, in this video, we're going to be addressing the largest problem with this car, and that's the fact that it doesn't run. Now, this motor here has a very large issue that I have a couple of reasons how I think that it happened, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys what happened here. It is something that I have never seen before. This is a BPY 2-liter turbo FSI, and these have 4 million different problems all the time. They never work right, but this issue here I have never seen before, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what that is. Alright, so we found this a while ago, but as you can see here, the camshaft is broken. This is very strange. I have not seen this before, but this is my thought on how this happened. So basically, if we come over here, you can see on the cam chain tensioner, right there, the plastic piece is broken. Now, what I think happened was this cam chain, there's a metal rod that pushes up inside of the tensioner, and that holds the plastic guide up. I think when the guide broke, the chain got caught on this. It must have been making terrible noises because this looks like it was this way for a little bit. But what I think happened was the chain got caught on the post. It hung the chain up, and that locked this camshaft, which ultimately ended up letting this here go because this motor does still turn over, but obviously it only turns and moves those two valves because the camshaft is broken there and all the rest of this doesn't spin. So that is what happened here to this BPY FSI. Is this motor fixable? Yes, it very well could be. I'm not 100% sure exactly what the extent of the damage is on this motor. I have obviously not torn it apart any further than this. We found this out a little under a year ago when we bought this car. And basically at that point we were like, okay, well this is probably going to need a motor. So we just went ahead and the car sat for a while. Now I just gotten back into it, and now we're going to be dealing with this. So this motor could be fixable. There's a chance that you could pull the head off, replace the head, put it back together, and it would work. But with this car sitting at about 200,000 miles, and the fact that I found some empty and full quarts of oil in the back seat, I don't have high hopes that this motor didn't burn oil. I'm not 100% sure. I don't really know, but it's a chance I don't know if I want to take for how easy it is to pull the motor out of this car and just replace it with the replacement motor that I have sitting on the stand over in the corner. Now, this is not going to be a full-blown tutorial of how to remove this motor and how to do this, but I'm just going to pretty much just document to you guys what I'm doing here. So we're going to go ahead and get this motor pulled out of this car and then get the other motor back in. Now, after I pull this motor out of the car at some point, I will do a teardown on it and figure out exactly what went wrong and what the extent of the damage is, because I'm not really sure and there's not really going to be a way to know until we pull the head off. But without further ado, I'm going to get into it. So I'm going to start tearing this thing apart and getting this motor out.
Perfect.
Alright, so made some good progress tonight. I got boost tubes off, everything disconnected pretty much, fan, everything, all the coolant lines. The only thing is, I don't have a T45 Torx here. I have one at work and there's one in the other shop, but it's getting late and I got to work tomorrow, so I'm going to call it for tonight, but made some good progress. Alright, so it is the next day, and as you can see here, I'm in some more progress on the car. Got the front end entirely off of it. I have the cowl completely apart, and there's a metal insert that goes in this general area. So you can remove that, and that gives you a little bit more access to the under the hood. So I got all that pulled off, as well as the front end, radiator, intercooler, AC condenser, all those types of things. That's all off. So now at this point, not exactly where I wanted to be tonight, but you know, that happens sometimes. Got started a little bit later than I had initially wanted to, but either way, we're still making progress, so I'm going to keep chugging along here, get some more of this stuff on. Probably not going to get the motor out tonight because it's already getting late. as you guys can see here, made some good progress tonight. Have the whole entire wiring harness pulled out, ECU pulled out, everything's disconnected. I have all the fuel lines off, all except for the heater core coolant lines disconnected. I have all the wiring over here disconnected, transmissions disconnected, and essentially everything that we can do on the top side of this car is done. So now at this point is going to be the stuff underneath, which is going to be the downpipe, the axles, the dogwood mount, and the things like that are underneath the car before we actually take the mounts out and get the whole motor out. All right, now as I'm doing this, I have a couple of tips that I'd like to share with you guys. And this is just general information, doesn't necessarily apply to this specific job. Number one, I like to take, once I take the front end off of the car, there's an amount of hardware, like once you get the rebar off and the entire front end removed from the car, that is when I usually take all the bolts that I've been putting in my magnetic tray and put it inside of a box. Now, basically, when you get to the point where you're putting the front end pieces back on, you then have all this, and then I start out my next tray once I start to get into the more in-depth stuff. It basically just helps me keep stuff organized a little bit, and that way I don't lose stuff or forget things. All right, so I got 3 out of the 4 out. There's one more in there, but it's very much easier to access from the bottom, and I have to pull the axles out of this anyway. So once I pull that axle, I'll have a direct access to the 4th one for the downpipe flange. So I'll just be able to pull that one off once I pull the axles out, which I have to do anyway. All right, so next up, gotta take the axle bolts out. Now these hopefully will come out without having to use heat. I do have the torch here just in case you need it, but you gotta give it a shot, the impact, and hopefully I can pull it out. We'll see here. Perfect. Good. So no heat had to be used. I'm going to go ahead and do the same on the other side. The inner bolts, I'm just going to take out. I'm not even going to try to film those because I know for a fact you guys are not going to be able to see it. I won't be able to get the camera underneath it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull both of these axles. We'll have to pull the ball joints to get them out. So under here, it's just 3 16 millimeters. Pull them out, pull it front, pull both axles out. After that, I'll come back and then we'll go from there. As you guys can see here, got the crane. And I got some stuff since the last clip. You guys saw a bunch done. So got both the axles removed. Got them right here. So look, right there. So got the axles pulled out of the car. I have gotten the shifter linkage disconnected. I have gotten the downpipe entirely off. All 4 of the downpipe studs didn't break, which I am absolutely amazed. The more I look at this motor has definitely been out way more recently than I thought, or at least the transmission or something, because all the downpipe bolts came out. None of the axle bolts fought me at all. The motor looks clean. Like, there's a lot of things lining up here that I'm pretty sure that this motor was probably apart more recently than I was expecting. When you take the last one out of each bracket, you want to make sure that you have tension on it, because if you let it hold down and when you're taking it out, the weight is pulling on the bolt, you'll actually pull the threads out of the mount. And some of these mounts are expensive, so this one's coming down, so pull it up a little bit. Comes out like that. Now, the other side. Pull this one out first. Like that there. And then the final one. Let it down a little bit. See here. So, at this point, I guess we'll see what happens. Okay. Almost out. There we go. There's no longer a motor in the car. All right, so now the motor's out of the car. There was one casualty. The flex on the downpipe broke, so I'm guessing it was just compromised, and when I was yanking on it, it finally gave way. So I'm going to have to come up with a solution for that sooner rather than later, because I don't want to put this motor back in before I deal with that. But also, nothing else really went too bad, obviously, you know. Also, something I wanted to mention, the broken camshaft out of the motor that came out of this car, that video my dad had posted on his Instagram. I'll link the video down in the description. I'll also put his Instagram handle here. But that video got, I believe, 2.4 million views in total. So that was pretty crazy. But I figured I got to mention that since I just did all this work to this thing and pulled that motor out. So go check that out. But just something cool that, you know, it was kind of crazy that this motor's been seen by 2.4 million people. But, so like I said, I'll link that in the description and check that out if you'd like. Alright, this is what I've come up with. I think we might be able to make this work, not sure, but so far this is my only option, so we'll see what happens. Headed back home with the downpipe, so hopefully we can make that flex work. Alright, so about 3 hours later, we now have the flex fixed. Complained about taking 3 hours, but luckily I didn't have to wait for any parts or anything. So now this is all taken care of, and now that problem is solved. Alright, so I got back on this project way later than I was hoping. I had to, which I'll show you guys here, had to tend to. If you guys have seen before, there's a whole other business on the other side of my shop, and basically all those are bins full of Volkswagen Audi parts, and they all needed to be redone and reorganized and condensed and whatnot. So I had to spend most of my day-to-day doing that. So I didn't end up getting to as much on this as I was hoping, but that's okay. I got the downpipe back in with the cat and the replaced flex and everything. So now at this point, I'm going to get this motor taken apart and taken off what I need off of it. Alright, as you guys saw in the time-lapse of the last clip, we got the transmission and the engine separated. Now, one good thing that I am seeing here, which I didn't know what would be the case, but this right here, it moves, which it's supposed to, but sometimes when these are bad, they'll turn over these bolts, and that's how you really know they're bad. So, basically, it's a good thing that that is not messed up, and so that we can take that off and put it onto the other motor. That is definitely a positive. Now, the turbocharger on the motor that came out of the car is actually not as good as I was hoping. It does have some play in it, and the turbo that I have on the other motor doesn't. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to just remove the broken studs out of the turbo on the replacement motor and use that turbocharger, because this one, despite the fact that we didn't break any of the studs, I have a better turbo in the other motor, so I'm just going to go ahead and use that one. All right, so that turbo play that I was talking about, maybe you guys will be able to hear it. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but basically, this turbo has got a little bit of shaft play. You can kind of see it there. But if we come over to the other motor, this motor has pretty much no play at all. So you can see here, it moves just a tiny little bit, but overall, not any noise coming from there. So basically, that's why we're going to go with the turbo on this motor rather than the turbo on the other motor. The other motor, the turbo is probably usable. It's probably fine, but I don't want to run the risk. I'm doing a lot of work on this, and I want it to work out. Hopefully, the first time we'll come up with as little issues as possible. So I'm going to try to avoid things that could potentially be an issue in that turbocharger with the play that it has. There was some oil in the boost pipes, which is normal to some level, but either way, I have a turbo here. I just got to pull those studs out. It's not a huge deal, hopefully, but so I'm going to do that. All right, so basically, this has been taking a lot longer than I expected to do all this swap over on the stuff between these two motors, but basically We're almost done, very close. Whole wiring harness is on, all the side covers, all of the things on this motor for the most part are done. I still need to do the spool valve on the AC compressor. I need to do the alternator harness and a couple of other things, as well as I'm going to have to extract at least one of these 2 broken turbo studs, because you need at least 3. But, you know, intake tubes on. We have almost everything back on this motor, and it's almost ready to go. Then we'll pull it off the stand and get the transmission back on it, and then once we do that, finally we'll be able to get it back in. Apologize if this has been taking me a while. It's strung over a lot of days, but it's just been a lot more than, you know, doing this in the evenings when I have time or whatever. It takes a lot of time to pick up where you left off and get this done. I'd say we got it pretty hot. I'm gonna keep heating it, and we'll give it a shot. Alright, so after about 20 minutes of heating and trying to get this thing to come out, finally gotten it removed. So, as you can see here, that's out. So that's really good news. So now luckily I have another stud. Now that's taken care of. So now we're going to be able to progress with putting this motor in. But right now, everything is super hot. So I'm going to have to let some stuff cool down. After loads of time of screwing around with this motor, it is finally time to put it back into the car. So that's super good news. As you guys saw in the time lapse, I was putting the flywheel on, got the transmission on. It fought with me a ton, but you know, it is what it is. Got it on, got it taken care of. So at this point, motor is all ready to go. Everything is done. So I'm going to go ahead and put it into the car. And just like that, motor's in the car. Super good. Got it in here. There is one problem, and that is that downpipe that I made. I kind of didn't clock the flange quite right. So basically it's off by a lot of rotations. So it doesn't, the bracket doesn't quite work right underneath. So I'm going to have to figure something out about that. Probably just put another one on it or something. I'm not quite sure. But other than that, motor's in. And looking at stuff, everything seems to be good. So this is hopefully going to go together a lot faster than it came apart. And we don't really have anything more to take off the engine. Everything is just, you know, like the last time we were taking stuff off. And I just got to put stuff on.
Perfect.
As you guys just saw in the time lapse, got a ton of work done under here. We have the whole cowl back together and stuff, minus the wipers. Got all the wiring up in there, got all this stuff back together. Also got the AC compressor swapped out, got the alternator harness put on. The engine cover is just sitting on here. It's not done. It's just kind of an illusion. But, so we got a lot of stuff taken care of and a lot of stuff sorted. So, getting closer. Didn't get it running tonight, but that's okay. Got some progress done. All the stuff underneath is done, and that's a good thing. Got back from dinner tonight a little bit earlier than expected, so I got to put some time in on the car here. So basically some of the things I did tonight, got the front charge pipe installed. I got the bracket on the front of the transmission for the alternator wiring all taken care of and put on. I have gotten the sound pipe that is right here. Fun fact, if you didn't know what this is actually a sound pipe for the 2-liter turbo because people complained that these weren't loud enough. So they put these in and they made them make more noise. And on top of all those things, like I said, got a bunch of miscellaneous stuff taken care of. I also have come up with a solution for our problem with my downpipe that I incorrectly clocked. So basically, there's a solution. I'm going to go ahead and put that back on tomorrow, and then that will take care of that problem. At this point, literally everything that needs done, aside from putting the front end on this car, is 100% completed. Got the other downpipe swapped out, got the lower charge pipe swapped out, and then just a bunch of other stuff that I had to do to make this 100% ready. So at this point, it is all ready to go back together. So I am going to get on with putting the front end. I'm going to put you guys on time lapse, and I'm going to put this all back together. The time lapse, got the whole entire front end back on. Nothing too crazy, just got it done. Also, got a battery on the charger over there, so I'm gonna go ahead, put the fender liners back in, put the wheels back on, get this on the ground, and then I will crank it over and prime it up with oil pressure because it hasn't been running quite a while, so I'll just disable it from starting. We'll crank it over and make sure everything's all good. Also put the coolant in it, and I don't think... Nope, still no leaks, so that's looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and get those other things wrapped up, and then we'll go ahead and try to start this thing. All right, so I got the battery hooked up, down on the ground, got the wheels on, and got power to it. So I have the coils unplugged so it won't start, but we're going to go ahead and try to crank this thing over for the first time. I'm very nervous, so we'll see what happens here. And here it has 200,841. I couldn't remember exactly how much. But, all right, so it's on. I'll give it a crank. Oh. I guess we gotta do that. All right. Let's try again. All right, we'll go one more time here. That should be good. All right, got the cover back on. Don't see any leaks or anything, so we're just gonna go ahead and give it a shot here. I guess we'll find out. All right, it's running. I don't see any oil lights. Heck yeah, it's got the fans on. I wonder if the air conditioning's on. Turn that off here. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why it's got the fans running, but yeah, she's a runner. Heck yeah. That's what we like to see. It's screaming at me here. What do we got? Battery lights on. I know why that's on. I'll explain that in a minute, but let's give it a little rev here. There we go. All right, so as you can see, got the car running. We don't see any major oil lights. We don't see any major problems, no major leaks. It's out of coolant, so I'm gonna have to add more of that. But it's looking good overall, so I'm really, really happy about that. Overall, very successful engine swap, so that's a really good thing. I did mention that the battery light was on, and that is because I broke the fuse for the alternator wire. So basically that fuse was essentially blown, and that's why it's not charging. So I'll fix that. That's the next thing to deal with. But overall, it's looking pretty good. I don't see any major problems. I also saw the fans were running, so I'm not quite sure what the deal is with that, but it could be related to low coolant or something like that. I'll figure it out. But either way, that's pretty much going to be a wrap on this video. I am going to take this car out on a test drive, but you guys are going to have to wait till next video for that. So stay tuned for part 3 of this project. So, because we're going to be driving the car and getting some lowering suspension on it and pretty much just putting the finishing touches on it. But I'm going to take care of all this little stuff and start to figure out what else this car is going to need. But all in all, successful swap. Really happy with it. So that's going to be a wrap on this video. I appreciate y'all for watching. Please make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell next to that so that you get notified when I post so you don't miss next video. So I really appreciate all your guys' support and appreciate you watching. So that's going to be a wrap on this video. Hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace.